bring this back onto the other way. I messed up the taxi approach because I was trying to get the camera going. Garrett should be able to take it. Here we go. So I'm just gonna go in for a fairly generic flight. I don't have any sort of enemies to dogfight. Not that I'd win. Well, I might win, you know. Might get lucky. Get a good position. Maybe I'm paying attention to my surroundings that day. Release. Next lift. You're up. Alright, so that's the hard part out of the way. Rimworld? This music is from Rimworld. Rimworld is my favorite game. Ever. I'm hoping the fan noise doesn't affect the quality here. In an ideal world, I can use this as some kind of ASMR video. That's kind of like my big goal with YouTube is to, you know, make content that not necessarily you can fall asleep to, but that you can relax to. Content that doesn't sort of demand your attention and really allows you to take your time with it. I'm flying fairly gently because I don't want to have to reset the camera again. Like, if I crash, I'm probably just going to end the video and upload it as is, if it's good. Yeah, Rimworld is my favorite game. If you don't know what Rimworld is, how lucky you are. Seriously, Rimworld is a story generator. It's a colony builder, but in my experience, it's a lot less about building the best colonies. So I'll invert it here. And a lot more about building sort of community. I do play somewhat modded, so my perspective on that might be a little skewed compared to someone else, but I think it still counts. It's hard to really describe the game. It's fairly simple. I guess I'll give you like the sort of basic premise, you know, the one that every user would probably do. You start with 3 colonists. Their skills might not be the best for their new lot in life as wilderness explorers. They have a small number of resources, usually enough to get like a starter shelter going, and they also have a gun, 2 guns actually, a bolt-action rifle and a revolver, and usually a plasteel knife. Plasteel is sort of like the metal that Rimworld made up that's like sort of like a hyper-potent alloy of some kind. I'm not the best at describing things, but it's just like a thing I want to ramble about. Alright, now that I've given the generic explanation, Rimworld it's a game that really understands sort of silence. Rimworld doesn't tend to lead you as much as it sort of for that. Okay. And invert it. And go back. So I want to check on that recording. Oh, it doesn't adjust. dangerous because the stick is handled by, the fight stick is directly affected by the, try not to stay too inverted for too long. There we go. Yeah, I'm gonna try and stay vertical where I can. Anyway, rimworld is it's pretty. Rimworld is kind of pretty. No, rimworld is a. I'm just excited about my most recent colony. I can't. I'm not an explainer. So. Start out with a group of 3. So I had a fairly competent fighter, I had a decent medic, and then I had this one guy that is really good at like combat. He had good shooting and good melee. I did change the startup a little bit. It wasn't like the generic start. I had some modifiers. It was so we started out with short bows, but that didn't last very long. Our medic upgraded those to recurve bows. And I had made it my mission to basically destroy this one faction. They weren't anything special, not like by game standards, really. But basically they were the first colony to raid us, and they were like, honestly, they were just really close. And I play with Rimworld on as one of my mods, which basically makes it that you end up dealing a lot with nearby settlements will interact with you, whether positively or in their case negatively. They were the Republic of Kainet, and they had sent a party out to raid us, and they had destroyed a lot of our stuff before we probably got situated. I was kind of furious, and they basically made it my life's work to hunt them down. I feel like it was good. Just a little bit of inversion. Back. Sorry, I just want to have a bit of fun. Yeah, so we made our life's work to take them down, and we managed to stumble upon a full set of plate armor. And plate armor isn't the best, it's heavy, it's clunky, but for early game, it's pretty good. Usually you want to upgrade to marine armor as soon as possible, but I don't like to sort of rush the meta. Sorry, I'm getting a little overconfident. I don't really like to rush the meta. I like to take my time and pace things. So I was mostly getting my gear from looting or from corpses. So this suit of armor was a real boon to find, and we did find it. We didn't have to kill anyone. So I had the idea. Oh, we've got all this gear. Let's head out and raid. Let's head out and raid them. So, obviously, Rimo was a colony build at first, and I may have modded the game to an extent that made it harder to play than necessary. But it's a fun challenge. It's nice to have to deal with things like water and sewage, and like the sort of like logistical concerns of of a growing, well, soon to be dying colony. But spoilers. But yeah, they don't last very long. But it's never really been about the ending. It's all about sort of like the path you take to get there. I spent so long fighting to get these poor lemmings to just for a moment, like, wake up and just kind of like wake up, you know, wake up, get some food, stop lighting the buildings on fire, you know, stop eating each other. Yeah, we got another colonist. They died, and then someone had a corpse obsession, took the still fresh corpse out of the grave. Someone else, and then someone else, desperate and hungry, they were having a really bad luck with hunting. Just giving the ground there. They're having really bad luck with hunting. So they got a very they were hungry. They were enduring a degree of famine not seen since the infinite reign of apocalypse of the bloodshed. So like yeah, it's a big oh god. It's a big deal. I should stop flying so close to the ground if I'm gonna get so nervous about it. Yeah, they were enduring. But as the colony began to fall apart, and they turned on each other. They started picking sides. Our healer, the husband. Okay, fine. I lied. I didn't start with 3 characters. I started with about 8 on a harder difficulty. I really like big settlements. I like the just to go straight at it. So yeah, I lied to you from the very start. I started with 8 colonists. And the reason we had recryptos is because we were actually a medieval settlement. I don't know why I'm lying so much here, but that's fine. Look here. Whoop! I did not see the second peak. I wouldn't need to if I gave it a little clearance. Not exactly a smart pilot. An excited pilot. I'm gonna go for the guy here. Sorry about the inversion. Let's try it. I've locked the controls in place. Let's see if I can fix the situation. Oh, now the pitch is good. Okay. Okay, cool. That was a lot easier to fix than I thought it would be. My bad. I just wanted to avoid the struggle, you know? Because I thought it'd be hard, so I didn't want to try. But it wasn't that hard. I'm trying to adjust the camera here. thought it'd be a lot harder than it was, so I decided I wasn't gonna try it. And using not to try it. Only sort of reinforced that I wasn't gonna do it. Alright, the camera controls are over here. Yeah, this isn't my avatar. It's a public. I'll put the link in the description because I don't care too much about credit. Oh jeez, losing altitude. This is one of the battle songs in there. Oh yeah, battle. So eventually, the battle we've been preparing for, it came. It came to us. Sort of. So, obviously, because we're hungry, and for some reason, 0 out of 8 of my colonists could figure out how to farm, and and despite being relatively good shooters and melee workers, they consistently struggled to get any kind of food. So, we had a backup plan. Well, I had the backup plan. I like to imagine that our knight, Tichlanda, who was sort of the de facto leader, the leader de jure, Albre, I don't understand her. She was completely incapable of all tasks except for socializing. But I think she was I think it was bugged because she didn't have any backstory or traits that would have caused that. I remember specifically. She was greedy, psychically hypersensitive, and her backstory was first she was a tribe child, and then she became a scavenger. So there's nothing in that should reduce her ability to do any tasks. There were no restrictions visibly. So even though it clearly read, she cannot do this work, she will not do this work. So she was mostly a nuisance. She wasn't a very good fighter. She became our best socialite by virtue of being. I felt like I had to give her something to do, so I made her the designated trader. Because I didn't want to put all my eggs into the healer, who was actually better at social than she was. Yeah, after playing remote for a while, you kind of learn not to over-invest in any one person. Because a life is worth a lot, but it can be easily lost. And it's important that when that life goes, that you have a backup plan. Sorry, checking the thing again. Alright, that's enough of my face. Come on. That'll do. Let's have some fun before the fuel gauge hits 0. Beautiful. I love rimworld music. Speaking of rimworld music, yeah. So we went to raid out a small tribal camp, and despite outnumbering the camp 7-1, we couldn't clear it out without taking severe casualties, not deaths. We didn't lose anyone in the fighting, but it was just a lot of like. There's a lot of violence. This one lady, her name was Osia. She was actually a member of Taden, with nothing but a recurve bow and a pocket knife. She fended off all 7 of the colonists I sent out for that raid. She fought like a lion. I guess I'll sort of try to map out the approach. Maybe I can find some terrain that'll work for the simulation. It's hard to see the terrain from there. Alright, we've got better visibility than I did. Let's put on the mountain. Actually, yeah, I'll use that mountain as now. Okay, so those two peaks. Yeah, those two peaks. They are, visualize them as a river. So our force was approaching from basically my position. That's the target. Oh, yeah, the target works perfect, right? Let's circle back. Our force was approaching from my position. And those two peaks, the river was what was dividing us. It was a huge, roaring river. So from across it, she was firing at us. Just her with the recurve bow. I figured we had more archers and I thought better skilled archers, but it seems I was incorrect. Either hunger or exhaustion or any number of factors meant that we weren't able to actually take the position from her directly. So we had to wait for her to exhaust her ammunition. I have an ammo mod. We had to wait for her to exhaust her ammunition, and we would then approach her. We'd have her approach us across the river. I thought, we wait her out. She would attack us across the river, and we would, take her down with the arrows before she got close. I was wrong. I was also very wrong, and I still don't understand how I could have been so mistaken. The principles at play here didn't seem particularly complicated, so I guess I'm just kind of befuddled. Yeah, so we were defeated nearly to a man. All that remained was actually not our knight Yolanda. It was our healer, Sergia. She fought as I was sending. I had sent her away early on into the battle because I realized that it wasn't going to be the washout that I thought it would be. But as things started to turn sour, I brought her back onto the scene, and that was a good choice. So she landed the final shot after after 6 of us had gone down. Then she was called back in and landed the final blow. Well, felling Uncia where she stood, but she was absolutely engorged in a fountain of blood. Sergia, the healer, was forced to run left and right, back and forth, patching a wound here, clearing an artery there, providing CPR, bandages, splints, everything. It was a mess. there was a mess that like felt almost karmic. Here we were, a band of struggling rogues trying to make ends meet, and we bump into, and we see a colony of people that we think are weaker than us, and we think, we'll take from them, and you know, how does that make us any better? Those people hadn't done anything wrong. Sure, they were with the kingdom of Tatum, but I like to, you know, you don't choose where you're born. You don't choose what faction your family signs on with. You just kind of live with it. And considering that it was just two friends in a shed hunting alpaca, I don't really think they did anything wrong. I think we were the villains in that instance, at the very least. Law and as you know, in a poetic way, as criminals, as all bandits and criminals suffer in, you know, in those kind of chivalric stories. I haven't read it. Eventually the knights came knocking, and I wish I could say there was a huge last stand. I wish I could say that we had. That we made them pay for every square foot of our base, but five of them were in mental break. 2 of them were in hospital. I dragged one out of the hospital with just enough stamina to shut the door, and then I dragged her right back in the hospital. It's really kind of daunting to think about the fact that, like, even though what we prepared for, what we trained for, what I had really, like, designed the whole colony around, we never fought or defeated, like, a single real member of Tatum. We killed 2 villagers. That's it, yeah. 2 people who probably didn't deserve it, you know? Just kind of farming, well, not farming, you know, they're just kind of hunting out in the woods by a river. And we cropped up out of nowhere and struck him down. It's kind of cruel. But I guess, you know, the poetic justice came to us because the king's army fell upon us. Sorry, why am I telling so many lies? The colony is real. Tietlanda's real. Sergey is real. You know, they're not real. They're fictional. But they're like, you know, they're real in my heart. And they also really did like exist in the game. I didn't make that part up. And they did, and we were defeated 7-1, despite having like melee scores averaging at around 7-12, and shooting scores averaging 9-14. Bad luck, bad news bears, you know. I'm tempted to do a landing approach, but I just realized how fast I'm going. I'm gonna do a go around. Yeah, I think I'm gonna end this video here. And we'll either end when I land or when I crash straight into the ground. Cutting throttle here. further down. This part's a bit narrow. But yeah, when the king's army came for us, we just surrendered. There was no will left to fight. Ooh, that's a tough approach. Cut the throttle here. There's the flare. Bring it in. Here we go. And break. Whew. Not a bad flight. I guess I'll finish the story. Yeah, so the king's army eventually came looking for us, and there wasn't really like a dramatic last stand. There wasn't any real fight for survival. We just kind of walked out and accepted our fate. In the end, only one of the colonists was left. The real sort of poetic irony. Tietlanda, the woman in the knight armor. I always imagine that she thought that she would go down swinging. She thought that she would fight, that she would be killed taking down knights. Battling the king's army to the last man and falling in battle. She died of a wound infection. A wound that was caused by infighting. This is a cool visual. I like this visual. It's cool. She died of social unrest. It's not a cool or honorable way to die. Essentially, after the battle with Uncia, the colonists were furious, but they couldn't decide who to blame. They had split off into factions in a way. They were getting into arguments, having more social fights, and Sergia, our healer, had attempted to kill our cook. I've forgotten his name. He's a secondary character in this. Ultimately, she was unsuccessful. Tietlanda stepped in and took her out, but she got bitten by Sergia. Bit actually. Like a zombie, but no, it wasn't like a zombie bite. It was a really messy fight. She got bitten, and the wound got infected. And Sergia, our healer, was the one who did it, and she was unconscious in the hospital, having been beaten to a pulp by people trying to prevent a murder. So there was no one there to heal the wound. And then by the time we were figuring out, and while we were figuring out who to do what with and trying to get food and things sorted out, that's when the king's army showed up, and I never really got to make the choice. It was just kind of made for me. There's a point in the colony where you just kind of accept that it's not going any further. And I guess for them, it was right there when the king's army started knocking at the door that I decided, yeah, these people are dead. Rimworld is a beautiful game. You should try it sometime. It tells the most wonderful stories, not because they're super dramatic or super poetic all the time. In fact, a lot of the time your Rimworld stories are, rather direct and hard to say, even ironic. Four people go into the woods. 4 people go into the woods with no expertise, and they get mauled by a bear and they die. That's a lot of them. You spend a couple days building a colony. You get a facility set up. You start working on things. Guy shows up, kills your family, leaves. That's the end of it. It's a sort of dramatic tragedy, but the cool thing about it for me is that it's not like scripted. There's no like plan in the game for like what's gonna happen. It just all plays out like that. And that's kind of cool. I don't have an outro, but I guess if there was one, like a way to sign off, I like to sign off with just like, I like to leave on a good note. I don't know who you are, I don't know what you're going through, but you should love yourself. Whatever you are, whatever you're doing, whatever you're capable of, whatever your intentions or agenda are, you should love yourself, whether you're the hero or the villain of your own story. Because like, knowing that you're worth something and having like that in mind, isn't this what you get after? Having sort of like yourself in mind, like having your best interests at heart. It might not make the world better for everybody, but at least it'll make the world better for you. And I guess loving myself makes the world better for me. It should make your world better for you. And once you understand what it means to love who you are, hopefully at some point you can sort of progress into loving others in the same way. Yeah, that's the outro.